Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. You saw a clip at the top of the show for our first movie this week, which is Moonlight. It's a coming-of-age story about a young boy coming to terms with his identity and sexuality in Miami, Florida. The film is directed by Barry Jenkins, and this has been quite the buzzed about movie this year, and for good reason. Moonlight is one of those rare, perfect films that melds, across the board terrific performances with beautiful atmospheric photography, compelling and really spot-on use of music, and anything else you can think of. It's all just sort of seamlessly blended together, and it's also a very emotional and humanistic film. And I think rare to see a portrayal like this that's set in, sort of the world of someone who's maybe more inner city, involved in drugs and these types of things. But almost every character is told with compassion and empathy, and I really appreciate it about that. Even the people that you think might be villains in some way are given some compassion, and I really appreciated that aspect of the movie.
It's really good. It's really good. Right from the start, you just know you're in for something special. There's been a lot of buzz about it, sure, but I've been disappointed by buzz many, many, many times, Angela. And but this is just such a sure film. This is Barry Jenkins' second film, and it already feels like an established filmmaker. I mean, this is either it's lightning in a bottle where everything is just struck right, and maybe he'll never have that ever again, or this is the beginning of something very, very special. Mm-hmm. And you can't help but wonder about these actors that are also involved and where they're coming from. Oh, I'm going to really try here. Mahershala Ali, who plays Juan, who's a drug dealer who kind of takes this young boy under his wing, is absolutely fantastic. He's also in House of Cards, but he's in Luke Cage. He's a really charismatic actor, and I really liked him.
Yeah, he's very good.
And, he's a drug dealer with a heart of gold. Well, you kind of see him kind of struggle with that identity when he sits down with the young boy, and he talks about him, do you sell drugs? And his mother has just recently fallen under the spell of drugs, and so it's a really heart-wrenching conversation. And he actually asked him, what is gay, and am I gay, or mm-hmm. He doesn't know, and asks them different things, and it's a very blunt conversation that you rarely ever see, and especially when films deal with homosexuality in any way, shape, or form, it's usually very cliched, or it's very preachy, or it's just poorly done. And this one is not his main identity. He's dealing with a lot of identity issues. It's part of his identity, obviously, and especially at a young age that he's kind of wrestling with. And it handles it so beautifully. And then at the end, and sometimes very harsh. It's very tough. Yeah. But there's, the last few words of this movie are absolutely touching and beautiful and amazing, and the last shot of this movie is just very.
It's perfect.
It really is. Yeah, I don't want to give away if it's good or if it's sad or
it's a
happy.
Perfect ending though, and satisfying. Which I often talk about. Sometimes you'll see a movie that's really great, but it doesn't quite.
You can't stick the landing.
Yeah, it didn't stick
tough.
The landing, and it's hard. It's hard to come up with a satifying ending that doesn't feel like a sellout. That doesn't feel like you wrapped everything else up with a tidy bow. And this is a perfect ending, I think.
The score really adds to everything. The look of it is absolutely beautiful.
Great choice of songs.
The motif of the waves constantly hitting it is really well done. The actress that plays Teresa is Janelle Monáe, who's a singer who I'm a fan of. Did not recognize her at all in this movie, and all I kept thinking was, "Wow, who is this? Wow, who is this?" She really doesn't. She doesn't have much screen time, but the character the second she comes in. She establishes herself. She's kind of a mother figure to him, a big sister to him, and is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there are so many times in this film where it was just jaw-dropping, going, wow, I really want to see more of this. I really would love to follow that character. I would really love to see how they, if they put this twist in there, how would they be able to handle it, because they do things so perfectly. And then, of course, of the main characters played by 3 different actors, but Trevante Rhodes, who plays Black, is absolutely fantastic. And that really is as good as the teenage was and the younger child is.
They were all great.
They're all great. They really were. But I think that he had the hardest one, because now we've got all these expectations going into him, and now you really want to know. And they do such a great job of explaining what has happened, not by having, there's always a part in a movie, and we're going to talk about a superhero movie here in a minute, where there's the exposition guy, where the person's got to sit there and go, wait, what do you mean? If you push this button, it does this, da 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 da. They don't do that. They have a regular catch-up where he meets a friend that from his childhood, and he's like, so what's happened with, what's going on with you? Well, this is what it kind of happened.
That was the way to handle that, yeah.
Or they just kind of mention things kind of in passing. Or there's some things, I think a lot of things are kind of implied. And you just kind of connect the dots yourself. I mean, it doesn't treat you foolishly. It knows that, you're in an art house, you're seeing an art film, you're pretty smart,
right?
For the most part. And you're not, wiping drool from your chin. It does, it really thinks highly of the audience. It thinks highly of the characters.
It doesn't insult your intelligence, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is a great film. This is a 4-star film. Where it'll land, I don't know in my top 10, but certainly somewhere in there.
Right now, to me, it's the top movie of the year. Although this has actually been a pretty good year. I have like 4 or 5 4-star films, which for this time of year.
It's November. This is kind of late for us.
Well, no,
usually this is when you start
necessarily.
panicking and sending me emails going or texts.
I know, but
going,
there's a lot coming out late
four-star.
this year, so I'm not too worried about it. But it's very very good film, and I also like the way that it shows the importance of community in his life in terms of, his mother, who you didn't mention, the actress Naomi Harris, who plays his mother, is very good as well. She's been in quite a few other films. She's probably one of the more well-known. I immediately recognized her. She was in Selma. But she is not there for him. So he really is isolated as a child until he meets the character of Juan and Teresa. And they are community members that became sort of, whether they're surrogate parents or brother, sister, like you said, there's someone who can be there for him and who accept him the way he is, especially as an only child. He's very isolated otherwise. So I really liked that aspect of it. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. It's showing here locally, and it actually started off as a slow release film, and now they're opening it in more theaters because it's doing actually rather well, which I'm very happy to see. Okay, we have a clip right now for you to take a look at. It is Doctor Strange. Okay, you saw a clip from Doctor Strange in which a former surgeon is drawn into the mystic arts to heal himself, and instead has to save the world from a bad guy with purple eye circles. This is the newest Marvel Comics movie and boasts, actually really outstanding cast. Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, plays Doctor Strange, but some really great films that, those who like art house films, actually great cinema will recognize. Mads Mikkelsen is a fantastic actor. Tilda Swinton, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I mean, there's quite a few really excellent actors in this film. Unfortunately, they're not really given anything to do. Tilda Swinton is left to, wave her arms around and draw gold circles in the air. Mads Mikkelsen is the aforementioned, villain with the purple eye circles, and Chiwetel Ejiofor is the obligatory black sidekick who is given almost nothing to do other than run around after Benedict Cumberbatch and wait for him to save him after only having been in the mystic arts for a few weeks. Of course, this is a superhero who is a superhero mostly because he has photographic memory, which is probably one of the...
Uses intelligence.
Yeah, it's probably one of the worst plot lines I've actually seen in a Marvel comic, which is saying a lot. He has, the moment that the cape flew on him, I almost groaned out loud. I mean, this is cheesy beyond cheesy. This movie is so predictable, and it's not even smart and funny. Like, Deadpool, which I was not a big fan of, like some people at least had some originality and some laughs, but this movie was boring and really kind of cliched. It has some amazing special effects, but that's a given. But where there's no story here at all. I mean, this is like paint by numbers.
This
Marvel.
is a spectacle, and I was really impressed with actually the look of it. I've actually been told that the 3D, which I've kind of been avoiding a lot of lately, is actually supposed to be really, really good in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a standard origin story, but you've got some great actors. And Tilda Swinton, I'm always a huge fan of, and she does have great presence. And her character is to be the ancient one. I mean, that's kind of it there. And with Benedict Cumberbatch, who's so great as Sherlock Holmes on the BBC television show, I cannot recommend that highly enough. He does a really good job of creating a different character and really selling it. And he really becomes Doctor Strange. And I really enjoyed that.
How is he a different character? How is he any different than Iron Man? He's another arrogant, egocentric, rich guy who becomes...
Sure. And Iron Man's very much like Batman, and Green Arrow's very much like Batman. Yeah, sure. There's some of those in there.
I'm just saying it's really not a different character. I was watching, I'm like, oh, this is basically like Iron Man, but not as interesting.
If you look at Shakespeare, there's a lot of the same kind of characters.
I know, but like I said, it's like Iron Man, but not as interesting or funny.
Comics.
Yeah,
you heard it right here, folks. But I really like what they are able to do with it now. Why Benjamin Bratt is allowed in comic book movie after Catwoman. He should have been banned a long time ago. He's actually pretty decent in this one. It's a great cast. I enjoyed one of it. And Mads Mikkelsen, the reason he took it is because he wanted to do Kung Fu. They offered him the role, and he immediately said yes. I totally want to do it. It wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the prestige. I certainly want now Tilda Swinton
Did he do any
does
Kung
things.
Fu?
Yeah, he got to do some wire work and stuff, so he really kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed that Doctor Strange actually used his brain. Now, there are parts where, sure, he's using magic powers, but because of his intelligence, because of his photographic memory, that's how he was able to become such a great surgeon, and he talks about that. That how he was able to use the time paradox at the end to defeat the villain was really, really smart. And it showed great sacrifice, because even though, I don't want to give too much away, but pretty much everyone has seen the movie by now, his destruction and how many times he was killed in that, we don't know how many times. It was hundreds, thousands. Did it hurt? Did he remember it each time?
No, I was so bored. I feel like I'm rewatching this movie
and I thought that was really interesting,
again.
And they showed the consequences for using that time paradox. And I like those kind of things. Now, it doesn't reinvent the wheel by no means. It's a 3-star film. I did enjoy it, and it was a lot of fun, and that's kind of what we're looking for when a big major blockbuster.
I guess, no, actually, I don't think we are. I think I'm looking for more, there are ways to make blockbusters that are a little smarter. There's action movies out there that are smarter than this, and this is not smart. This is paint by numbers.
Which ones did you see this year?
This is like carving out. I'm not saying this year. I'm saying in the past. There's a way. Well, how about a villain who's interesting and has more motivation than?
He wanted to bring the Dark Lord into this world. That's
to destroy the world. That's it.
No,
okay.
Because he believed the dark
but
power
how
was
about
the better
anything?
part.
How about?
And then you found out the ancient one is using the dark power.
How about you put even 10% of what you put into the special effects budget in creating a story that actually is interesting?
Tons of people wrote in the screenplay. There's always
there's 5 people on it to do what? I have no idea, because it's so boring.
No,
it's so boring.
They did it really interesting. I enjoyed it. I liked it.
2 stars.
Well, 2 stars. That's not terrible for you. That's almost okay, isn't it?
No, no, that's not recommending it. But
okay, so we'll switch gears yet again.
Thankfully.
And we're going to go to our streaming pick, which is a short film about love by Krzysztof Kieslowski. Talk about a brain trust of an idea for a movie. A young boy. That sounds like an 80s film. Oh, it is an 80s film. It was actually from 88. This sounds like a Porky's film. This is a young boy who spies on his female neighbor across the way, and is very greatly infatuated with her, and thinks and creates of different ideas of ways to have cute meets to meet her and hopefully engage in a conversation and something more. That does sound like an 80s
Yeah,
movie.
but it's nothing like that.
But that's exactly what that
this
sounds
is a European
like.
art house
Goodness.
film.
But still, that plot is, that took 10 seconds to write for me. Now, Kieslowski, this is it's a beautiful film. It's a little different. Now, we recently reviewed Stranger by the Lake, where Scott and I had some issues with why this person would be in love with this person and why we give this person the time of day. This is another one of those also where the woman who's kind of being victimized in a way by him, spying on her and watching her, to have any kind of interest in him other than a simple curiosity.
Right.
And when you had a film like Monsieur Hire, one of my favorite films by Patrice Leconte, there was a reason why she drew in his interest and why she strung him along in some evil ways. God, I love that movie. This one actually does kind of work. I mean, I do kind of enjoy it. It's part of the Decalogue. It's part of the 10-hour or 10-film series they did of the of the 10 Commandments.
Right.
And I did like this film. It was very interesting. We watched it together. We kind of snickered a few times because it was like, why would you indulge?
Well, yeah, there's a bit of stretching the bounds of reason. I mean, just from a perspective, he's essentially a stalker but he's romanticized a bit because he's in love with her, and he's sort of this innocent, virgin, type boy.
Well, he's an
and
innocent virgin.
He's
he
very
couldn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, yeah. So what's interesting about it, and I think what he's interested in terms of the themes that he's trying to explore here, is that, it's sort of this absence makes the heart grow fonder, grass is always greener on the other side, pick a cliche. But, this idea of, the idea of unrequited love, the fact that he is obsessed with her and she just sort of basically finds him first a nuisance, then she's sort of pissed. She does go through a period where she's like, no, just leave me alone or whatever. But then there's sort of this tables are turned moment where he goes away. I won't get into why in case you watch the movie, but he's not there anymore to ravish his affections and attention on her.
Yeah.
And then she becomes obsessed with him.
Yeah.
And it's totally flipped. And it's this very much this idea that all of a sudden, even though she found the attention annoying, now she's missing it. Now this person that was obsessed with her is gone, and now she's like, well, nobody's obsessing about me now. And now she's craving this in her life and longing for him in a way. So it was very odd, and then you have this whole character of his mother, who's a very interesting character. So I can recommend it, but it's definitely... it's nothing like the Three Colors trilogy in terms of the Red, White, and Blue trilogy, which for those of you who are out for...
Or a short film about killing.
Yeah,
the murder or death.
Short film about killing is one of the other ones of his. He's done so much, Double Lives of Veronique. I mean, he's done some amazing works. I don't think this holds up with his best movies, but it's definitely still interesting and a good one to add to your list.
Now, which sin is it?
What are you talking about?
What, the Ten Commandments. Which one, or not Ten Commandments? Was it 10 Commandments?
Well, I was assuming it was. I was assuming that this was the "Do not covet thy neighbor's wife," maybe. But she's nobody's wife, though.
Is that one of the commandments there? Because those are really vague to me. I kind of got through a couple and was like, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, now that all the audience knows Brian's biblical knowledge, but she's not married, so I'm not sure that really fits because she's nobody's wife, but she is his neighbor.
It's interesting because they kind of
do not spy on thy neighbor. I don't think
there's been a few of them. I've read a few articles where they say some of them they can kind of slide into different ones, and so it's kind of interesting there. I can recommend it. It's a 3-star film. Again, it doesn't have the power of some of the other ones he did, even though it's a shorter film, which I'm like, well, it's kind of tough to do, but a short film about killing still to this day
I don't think
bothers
I don't think the
me.
length is an issue. You could still make a great film in 80 or 90 minutes, but and we haven't seen great ones in that length. In fact, it's one of my preferred times for movies these days. So as you know, but no, I give it. Are you giving it 3?
It was like 88 minutes.
Are you giving it 3 or 3.5?
3.
3. Okay. Yeah.
It was like 88 minutes or something.
No, I enjoyed it, and I can recommend. The photography is nice, and yeah, I was just thinking that the commandment could do not spy on thy neighbor with long-range camera technology that you...
No, because he's got all 7 deadly sins. It's not there's because there's 10, so it has to be the commandments because, that's right, because 7 deadly sins, that's Gilligan's Island.
Maybe it's something about, maybe the lust one. I don't know. I'm not sure what he's getting at with that.
That's a sin. Or the commandment.
Is
there a sin commandment? There's
I think you
a
should
Bible
move on.
talk show that we should be able to call in on CCTV. There has to be one.
I know there's plenty of them.
Bible
Don't worry
talk.
about that. Okay.
If they don't, I just named your show. You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next segment, which is his distinguished classics. That's a list of movies.
I think Taylor wants to help you there. She's trying to save this.
And this one is 1949's Stray Dog by the master filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. One of my all-time favorites. It stars Toshiro Mifune, one of my all-time favorite actors, as a young detective who is trying to find his stolen pistol. Now, this takes place post-World War II, and the subtext in this film is just incredible. Now, on the surface, technically this is a very sound film, and Kurosawa even said it was his most technical film, but there wasn't enough emotion in this. And you know what? I'm going to agree with Kurosawa, surprisingly enough. This movie didn't hit me as emotionally as, many of his other classics, Ron, Cage Misha, and Rashomon. I mean, there's a list that goes on and on. But it is a fantastic film. I mean, really well made. It almost feels like not a student film, but it feels more like one of those where you could say, oh, wow, what an incredible shot. This is what this is doing, da-da-da-da. Whereas, as opposed to the other ones where you get pulled in and you go, wait, was there a great shot? I don't know. I was too busy worrying about the characters and being pulled in. And the second or third time you watch those, then you can kind of pull them apart. This one, you kind of pull apart as you kind of went along. And of course, it's a Criterion film, so if you watch it and you enjoy it, then you listen to the commentary, you can't help but think, it's a classic. This is amazing. This is the greatest film ever made. when they have a great commentary, my God, they have a great commentary. But it's a 3.5-star film for me. I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It's got some great. It's got some wonderful scenes, especially with some of the chase scenes that they have in there. I love the fact that, you know, the master-student relationship he has with the elder statesman that's a detective that kind of slowly takes him through and shows him kind of the interrogation process, or how he's able to pick up little clues. And sometimes it's very, very subtle with the matchbooks. The matchbook is a great scene there.
I actually give this one 4 stars. I think I liked it better than you. I thought this was really terrific. I know it's not your typical Kurosawa film in some ways, like his later work, but I just really liked the focus. It was sort of like it felt very much like an American film noir, but done Japanese style.
Yeah.
Besides the really funny cabaret scene, which just cracked me up. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Because it has the reminiscent of the old 40s movies with the cabaret and the smoky lounge with the dancers on the stage, but
the blinds.
It doesn't have quite
shadows.
the same. It's just it's a different twist on it. But the use of heat in the movie, I love a good hot movie. Everyone in this movie,
this is one of the hottest movies
ever. Yeah, I mean it's one of the hottest. It's up there with you know, just some of the ones you can think of set in the American South too. You know, where you can just see people sweating throughout this film.
Oh no, they didn't sweat in that movie.
But it's really keeping that use of heat though. Here it's supposed to be this intensely hot summer in Japan, and so as they're going around trying to solve this case, everyone's sort of on a short leash, everyone's sweating, short-tempered. I just really liked that aspect of it. And of course you have, as you mentioned, Takashi Shimura, one of the great actors who's been in Kurosawa's films. I loved him as sort of the older mentor to Mifune's character. It's also just kind of cool to see Toshiro Mifune in a non-period piece, with actually modern clothes and hair and looking like a young, dapper, police detective with his short hair. And so I really went along with it. And I love the end, not the end scene. I actually didn't care for the coda at the end. I almost felt like they could have just ended it with the scene in the field. But like there's aspects of it that feel like an American film noir. There's the bad guy and they're chasing and they have the big chasing in the end, but it ends in such a very beautifully Japanese way. Rather than a big shootout in an alley, it's in a field and there's flowers and a focus on nature, which is much more Japanese, and I loved that.
Yeah,
I thought it was
kind
beautiful.
of go back and forth a little bit on the end. Yeah, it was beautiful, but it didn't some of it didn't kind of fit with. And
I thought it fit because they were supposed to be, they were both guys that had been in the war and they'd been kind of discarded from society, and they'd each taken a different path. One went into the life of crime and one went into the life of police. And so, I mean, I just loved that parallel. I thought it was terrific.
Yeah. No, it's definitely worth a film worth finding. Yeah.
So rare Kurosawa film that I liked more than Brian. That's pretty unusual. So our next segment is our pop quiz hotshot, where you can go onto our Facebook page, Real Film Snobs, if you just look under that and enter our pop quiz hotshot. The question this week is, who do you prefer, Kieslowski or Kurosawa? So not a lot of options there, just one or the other. We only had a few responses, but I'll read those off. So Brian Knoll said that he loves Kurosawa, but Kieslowski hits me in my soul. Brett Bynum said both. Okay. You can't have it both ways. It was one or the other.
What the heck?
Okay, Brett, you got to pick. Dennis McCarty said Kurosawa. It's a very old affection beginning in his youth. And Brian Hart said loves both of them, but Kurosawa, if he has to pick.
I posted this one because I thought, I'm just kind of curious. My big picture maybe eventually that we'll do some sort of bracket. Let's work our way into them. But also I was just kind of curious in terms of what some of the answers would be, because it is kind of hard when you compare, artists. But we all do have preferences. I'm a Kurosawa fan because of my generation. He was the one, him and Ford influenced the trilogy of Lucas, Spielberg, and Scorsese, and that's the makeup of my generation in terms of film buffs. And you see a lot of their work and is inspired from him. But Kieslowski, it's such kind of a, obviously they're filmmakers, but they're very different in many ways.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit about Kurosawa, though. I do love this, the technical aspect of it, but he also has the emotional one. Of course, working with Toshiro Mifune, one of the great actors of all time, in my opinion, really helps. But I think that it's kind of on both levels. Kieslowski, I always love the look of the film, and I always love the way the styling of the film he does. It's kind of his own thing there, but I kind of lean towards Kurosawa because
different. I mean, I would overall prefer Kurosawa. Of course, it's also unfair because Kieslowski died somewhat young, and so he only made 14 films in his whole career. Kurosawa made a lot more, so he had more opportunities. Kurosawa is a little bit more of a man's director, if you will. I mean, you really remember the men in his film, very masculine. Kieslowski is the opposite. You really remember mostly. I can rarely remember any men in a Kieslowski film. It's really the women, especially in the Three Colors trilogy. You really remember Juliette Binoche. You really remember Julie Delp. You really remember the women in his film. Even in the short film about love, the one we reviewed earlier, even though it's the focus on the young man, it's actually her that I really remember. So, it's hard. That's
an excellent point, Angela. This is why I wanted to put something like this in a spur of conversation.
Yeah, it's
very
great.
good. Yeah. See, I'm glad I chose you as a co-host.
Oh, good. Oh, you chose me. Okay. I'll see how that's working now. Okay. Okay, so just to wrap up, Moonlight, we both give 4 stars. Run out and see it. It's one of the best films easily of the year. Doctor Strange, Brian can recommend. I cannot. Short film about love, we both recommend. And Stray Dog by Kurosawa, we both recommend. You can go to our website at realfilmsnobs.com and like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. As always, I'd like to thank our fantastic, wonderful, hardworking crew and our amazing sponsors. Is there anything I'm forgetting, Brian?
We just say Facebook, Twitter, and
Twitter. Oh, and listen to us on KMUZ.
There's the other one.
Every week. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies. Thank you.